Welcome back to Engage and Lead Live. Going through a variety of topics on leadership and engaging your team so that you can be a more effective leader. Was thinking about performance improvement plans and wanted to kind of talk about discipline a little bit. And there's really two sides to discipline. One is the discipline to perform the right actions. Like weightlifters or people who work out regularly have the discipline of working out or doing the same action over and over again so that they get a certain result. The other side is to avoid inappropriate behaviors. So essentially what discipline is about regulating behavior. That's it. That's the only thing discipline really is. It's about regulating behavior, doing the right behavior or avoiding the wrong behavior so that you get the result that you want. Now think about it in your business a little bit. Discipline is something that is inevitable. At some point, you're going to have to engage with your employees in a way that teaches them discipline. Again, performing the right behaviors or avoiding the inappropriate behaviors, right? So it's really about how you regulate the behaviors of your employees within your business. Think of it this way. If you look at regulating behaviors, it's not just about the behavior, it's about what is appropriate for that environment, right? So if you're in a sales environment, like I am, your behaviors are appropriate if they contribute to increasing sales. If it's not increasing sales, then it's inappropriate behavior. And you want to be able to regulate and identify what is appropriate versus what is inappropriate so that you can help your employees recognize how they can be more disciplined in their approach to sales. On the other side of it, though, discipline is also about addressing the inappropriate behaviors of employees that go against the policies and procedures of your business. Every business should have specific and identified behaviors that are appropriate or inappropriate. And you base your discipline off of what those behaviors are and how you identify those behaviors. If your employees don't understand what behaviors are appropriate, then how are they going to be disciplined to do those behaviors? But when you identify appropriate behavior versus inappropriate behavior, you can actually help your employees stay disciplined to do the right things, and you can discipline them discipline inappropriate behavior with 3 different strategies. I want to talk about these 3 strategies, and then I'm going to go into 4 steps of how you can implement those strategies whenever you need to discipline or bring discipline into the situation with an employee. Let me give you an example, first of all. Say you have an employee who is consistently tardy, right? And tardiness it's kind of an ethical issue for me in a lot of ways, because if you say you're going to be somewhere at a certain time, or if you make an agreement, like an employee makes an agreement with their employer that they're going to work a certain shift, 9 to 6, for example, then they should be ready and at work at 9 and work to 6. And if they get breaks within that are allotted by the company, like a lunch break or 15-minute breaks or whatever, then they take those appropriately and not cheat the company, right? Because if they're not working according to what they agreed to work, they're cheating you as an employer, and they're cheating the company. And it's actually costing you a little bit of money in productivity and efficiency with your team. That's an example of behavior that could be disciplined behavior, right? Another one may be inappropriate behavior, things that go into harassment. I mean, there's all sorts of aspects on behavior and what could be used as inappropriate behavior versus appropriate behavior. All of those, like I said, should be outlined and identified in your policies and procedures, that all employees understand what is appropriate and what's inappropriate. And that's where discipline comes in. So let me talk about the 3 strategies real quick. First of all, you have to be able to identify which strategy works with each situation. But the first strategy for discipline is preventative. So it's ahead of the action, and you're taking proactive attempts to prevent certain behaviors before they happen. Right? So an example of this is if you see something that looks like it may occur down the road, say someone is absent for a couple days or whatever, and maybe they weren't sick, but they just had to take some time or whatever, but they've exhausted their paid time off. So now once they get to their paid time off being exhausted, preventative action could be along the lines of informing them, look, your paid time off has been exhausted, so whenever you take any more absences, you're not going to get paid for them. That might be preventative discipline, right? You're getting ahead of the game, trying to be proactive in preventing certain behaviors before they even happen. This is a lot of times what we consider personal discipline. I'm a disciplined person and I do certain behaviors over and over again so that I can get a specific result. Dieting is preventative discipline, right? So there's a lot of examples on that. The next strategy for discipline is corrective, right? Corrective discipline recognizes an inappropriate behavior and reminds the employee about the appropriateness of the behavior, as well as how they can change it to be more appropriate in the future or whatever. So corrective could be, let's use the tardy example again. If an employee is tardy excessively, and how you define excessive varies. I know one company that if an employee is late 3 times, they automatically get terminated. They have a very strong, disciplined policy on attendance because they believe that attendance and punctuality, like I said before, is an ethical issue. And they want to correct that behavior very quickly. So corrective discipline and the corrective strategy is designed to identify what the inappropriate behavior was and how they can change, and reminds them how they can change that behavior and gives them direction on how they can change it to be more appropriate. All right, so we have preventive, we have corrective. The next one is supportive. Right, it's designed to remind your employees about what good behavior is or appropriate behavior and support them in actually fulfilling that behavior, right? So supportive, and you can even look at the tardy example again. Supportive discipline would be, look, I understand you were stuck behind an accident, or you were stuck in traffic for some reason. Let's figure out a different route that you can take so that you're no longer tardy, right? We want to correct the behavior, but we also want to be able to support the employee in how that behavior and how they correct that behavior, right? So we have preventative discipline, we have strategies, we have corrective strategies, we have supportive strategies. All of these are designed for discipline to be a positive, not a negative thing. You see, a lot of times when we think of discipline and when we think of discipline in employees, we automatically think it's a negative thing. But instead, if we approach it as a positive aspect, what we're doing is we're trying to, like I said before, regulate the behavior. When my kids were young, right, discipline's an inevitable part of raising or rearing children. And I don't know if you have kids or not, but if you have had children, one of the things that I used to teach parents is, when it came to discipline, is that it's not a negative thing. kind of go back to this corrective discipline a little bit. It's looking at what those consequences of actions are and whether those are good or bad, how you define good or bad, regardless. Discipline is a positive approach to preventing, supporting, or correcting certain behaviors. It's a positive thing. Most people kind of view it as a negative, and whenever they start thinking about discipline within the workplace, we have verbal write-ups, we have verbal warnings, we have write-ups, and all of these things, and they're oftentimes prepared or promoted as negative. One of the things I try to do with my employees whenever I'm talking about them about and giving verbal counseling and doing verbal discipline, first of all, let me say this. Anytime you are engaging in discipline with an employee, you must document it. Document it every single time, regardless of which of these three strategies you are using. Document it. Because if you document it, you can actually go back and say, look, remember here's the time we talked about you being tardy. And we talked about approaches on how to prevent that in the future. Or we talked about how we can support appropriate behavior and avoid the inappropriate behavior so that you're no longer tardy. If it's a written warning, then you can move in and say, look, here, remember, we had this. I gave you a verbal warning here. We did a written write-up here. If you document everything, you have all of the tools necessary to continue to help regulate the behavior of your employees. And it's not a negative thing. All of these are positive aspects of how you can regulate your business and actually decrease risk in your business. You see, your goal in business is to increase profit and decrease risk, right? If you can increase profit, discipline comes in so that you can help decrease risk. When an employee is engaging in inappropriate behavior, whether it's being late, whether it's cheating the system or stealing or lying or misleading or whatever the situation might be, discipline is designed to regulate that behavior in a positive way so that you can decrease risk in your business and possibly at times also increase profit. Right? So let's look at the steps that you can take to actually implement these different strategies. First of all, regardless of how you're approaching discipline, you have to determine which of these three strategies is the most appropriate strategy for the situation. Does it require preventive discipline? Does the situation require supportive discipline, or does the situation require corrective discipline? Once you recognize or understand which strategy is appropriate for the situation, there are 4 steps that you can take on every single approach to discipline that will work. And if you continue with these and do it the right way, should help regulate that behavior for your employee. Now, before I get into these 4 steps, I will say this. Regardless of what you do as a leader in your business, there may be a time, and there probably will be, that you will have to let someone go. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, I do not like firing people. I don't think it's fun. I think it's a last resort. But sometimes it has to happen. Sometimes whenever you get employees in there, regardless of what happens, they could be a great employee for 8 or 9 years, and then all of a sudden something changes within them that they're no longer a great employee, and discipline comes in, and either they need to quit or they need to be moved out and fired, depending on the situation, obviously. But this is what discipline is designed to do. It's designed to regulate the behavior and correct it. If the employee is not correcting the behavior, the natural result of that should be termination. Obviously, the end result, not the first. But here are the steps that you can take. 4 steps. And they're actually quite simple. First of all, you have to identify what the inappropriate behavior is. Sorry about the jumbled letters there. You have to identify what the inappropriate behavior is. For example, we'll use our tardiness example. On these dates, March 5th, 6th, 7th, so-and-so employee was tardy by such and such amount of time. Or this employee was tardy on these following dates. And you write those dates out. That's identifying the inappropriate behavior. Be very clear in what that behavior is. That way there's no mistake. This is what you did. Fact. That's it. Situation. You have to identify what the inappropriate behavior is. The second thing that you do is you outline why or how that behavior is inappropriate. This is where your policies come in. According to attendance policy, all employees are expected to clock in and be ready at their desk for work at 9 a.m. Boom. Tardy, why it's inappropriate, I've outlined it. I've got it covered. These are just facts. There's no emotion involved in this. It's just stating what it is. The next thing that you have to do is develop a plan for correcting that behavior. Going forward, this employee, name the employee, right? Going forward, this employee will clock in 5 minutes early and be at the desk ready for work by 9 a.m. That's it. It's measurable. It's a fact. This is what you will do. You will do this, or step 4, you will define what the consequence of failing to meet this plan is within a specific time frame. Right? So we've identified what the inappropriate behavior was, why it's inappropriate or how it was inappropriate, what our plan is going forward, and the timeline within which to do it. For the next week, you will do this. If you fail to do this plan, further disciplinary action may result up to and including termination. I always include, and here's the thing, I always include further disciplinary action may result, or something along that line in those wording, up to and including termination. Again, we are trying to correct behavior, and including that last line may actually help us not only do a corrective write-up, but it may help prevent further behavior in the future. So sometimes you can actually jumble these together and bring in multiple strategies into one disciplinary action, right? But here's your plan. Identify, or your steps on how to implement discipline. Identify what the discipline or what the inappropriate behavior was. Outline why. Develop a plan for moving forward on how to correct that behavior within a specific time frame and the consequences of failing to correct it. Again, discipline is a positive aspect that you need to implement in your business, and you want to document it every single time you take disciplinary action with an employee. Whether it's just verbal, whether it's written, or whether it's terminal, you want to document every time. We'll continue probably in a different aspect of what discipline and working on your discipline as a leader, things like that. But for right now, the 3 strategies for discipline: preventing, supporting, correcting, and the 4 steps of identifying the inappropriate behavior, outlining a plan or outlining why it's inappropriate, developing a plan for correcting that behavior, and then the consequences of not following that or following that plan within the specific time frame. Good luck with it. This will actually, if you implement this properly and effectively, will help impact your business in a very positive way. Look, if you need help with this, feel free to text me, 479-831-3174. I'm here to help you. I want to help you get your business going, and I want to help you be highly successful.